We've got 5 juicy Reddit stories for you guys today, starting it off hot with, would I be the a-hole to divorce my wife after she said she wanted to send our son to a conversion camp? This story, as well as all the stories we're about to read, have updates. So let's lock in here. This is a pretty heavy situation, and I'm really confused and disgusted, not gonna lie, because I never thought my wife was like this. My wife, 44 female, and I, 45 male, have been married for 14 years. We have 2 kids, a 16-year-old son, let's call him Noah, and a 12-year-old daughter. We've had our fair share of disagreements over the years, of course, but things have generally been smooth between us. Now for the context, Noah came out as gay about a year ago. It was a surprise, and as hard as it was to accept, I love my kids more than anything and just want their happiness. My wife visibly didn't take it well, though. She was upset and seemed to go through a grieving period where she didn't really talk about it. I tried to support Noah in every way I could, telling him that I loved him no matter what, etc. My wife, though, I could tell she wasn't on the same page. She would say things like, "This is just a phase," or "He needs help," but I brushed it off as her needing time. Fast forward to last week, and we were having a conversation about Noah's future. Out of nowhere, my wife casually mentions that she's been looking into conversion therapy camps and thinks it might be the right solution. She said that Noah isn't truly gay, that he just hasn't been shown the right path, and that this could fix him. My blood ran cold. Obviously, I was in shock. I immediately told her I didn't agree and that this was not something I could support. Duh. Yeah, I mean, not only is she suggesting something that is, I would argue, just straight up abuse. I mean, the stuff that they do at those conversion camps is abuse. But also her mindset about it. That he's broken and that he needs to be fixed is just like, I mean, unless he's like a serial killer or something, that is just an awful mindset to have about your own child. She got upset and said I was enabling Noah's confusion and that if I really cared about him, I would help him get better. What the fuck is wrong with her? She was persistent, and no matter how much I tried to explain that conversion therapy is harmful, like I know those kids get abused, R-worded, and often end up either traumatized or unaliving themselves, and that I would never send our son to something like that, she wouldn't back down. If I'm being 100% honest, I don't even think I love her anymore. The fact that she could be so heartless disgusts me. I know being gay is not easy and people like her just make it harder. I'm considering staying only for our daughter's sake, but would it be okay if it means hurting my son? It feels like a betrayal to Noah. I just don't think I can keep living with someone who thinks this is okay. I mean, what are you telling your daughter if you decide to stay with her? You're telling your daughter that it's okay to stay with somebody who is homophobic. You're just teaching that that's like an okay thing. It's one thing to maybe be like, oh, I wish they were straight. I can totally see that from somebody who's 44 years old. They grew up in a different time, but to want to send them to conversion therapy and to like say that they're broken and that they need to be fixed, that's unacceptable in my eyes. I see a lot of divorce papers in chat. I think you guys are right there. I'd try filing for emergency custody because she could try to send him off to that camp when you're not around. That's actually a very good point. Not saying that he should stay with her long term, but do you think it makes sense for him to stay with her short term until Noah is 18 so that she can't make that decision for him? All right, so update here. Really bad update if I can be honest, so let's get into it. All of you told me to try to get him out ASAP. Y'all were definitely right. So yesterday I took the day off and went to see an attorney just to get some info about divorce, etc. But after what happened, I'm 100% sure I want a divorce ASAP. Yesterday, I went to pick Noah up at his school, and as many of you suggested, we had a long discussion. I basically told him his mom and I may be getting a divorce because she wants to send him to a conversion camp, but I can't accept that. I've talked with her many times, and I told him I'll probably go through with it. He looked really hurt, my heart broke all over again, but was very understanding and thanked me for standing up for him. I pulled him into a tight hug and told him I'll always love him no matter what, and that nothing's his fault. At that moment, he started crying because he was so glad at least I was on his side. And I'm very pissed. So sorry if I don't make any sense, but apparently his mom has been pressuring him for months. She planned dates with girls to try to fix him, and he had to lie by saying he was going at a friend's instead. She was saying he needs help, and as much as she loves him, he needs to get his condition cured, etc. I feel so bad because I've been so oblivious to all that, and I failed to protect him for all that time. how do you make your 16-year-old son go through that? Man, that's so sad. That poor kid, bro. I'm gonna say it right now. Like, if you're dealing with any of that, that is not normal. Like, you need to find an adult you feel safe with ASAP. So when we got home yesterday, I can't lie, I was furious and confronted her right there and then. At first, she was trying to explain she was doing it for him, but her speech quickly turned to slurs, and it was clear she was just ashamed of having a gay son. In the end, I told her I went to see an attorney and that learning all that just confirmed that I want a divorce. She got really angry, calling me a delusional disgrace. We argued a lot, and at some point, Noah tried to separate us, but my wife punched him multiple times. She was saying disgusting things like he is a dirty F slur and that it's all his fault we're getting divorced because his filth corrupted me. If you see the world like this, like, you are truly delusional. If you're like, oh, the real problem here is everybody else, the call is coming from inside the house. My daughter, who was probably in her room, came to see what all that commotion was about and was rightfully horrified and quickly called 911 when I told her to. Long story short, the cops got here and took her away. She was very reluctant to go because she was not in the wrong and they needed to let her go. I explained everything to my daughter and she doesn't want anything to do with her mom anymore. Right now, I'm in the hospital because my soon-to-be ex-wife broke my rib while I was restraining her. I mean, damn, but that's gonna look real good in the divorce, you know? That's probably a really shitty thing for me to say, but that's where my brain went. I should have probably went as soon as the cops took her, but I don't care. My son was crying with a black eye and a split lip. They are checking for any concussion, and obviously the only thing I cared about was to comfort him because I can't even imagine what it can feel like being beaten by your mom for being gay. I'm planning to file for full custody, of course, and my kids don't want to see her ever again anyways. Given all the charges she's facing, I hope she won't stand a chance against me. I just sent a mail to my attorney, and I hope the procedures will be fast. I've also thought of getting CPS involved, but I'm not sure they will really help. Like, I cannot understand how you can grow so resentful of your own kid because of something they can't control. Even I had pretty strong opinions about it, but as a father, it is my role to unconditionally love my kids, and so I learned about the topic and changed my way of seeing the world for him. It took some time grasping it, but I never doubted 1 second the love I have for my child. I thought it was the same for my wife. Apparently not. As messy as that situation is, I think this is gonna work out for the best because of the way that the situation went. Like, what were your concerns here? Getting full custody of your kid and it being the best thing for your daughter. The events that happened sucked, but it's gonna look really great in a court case you're trying to get custody for your kids for when your wife has not only hit you and broken a rib, but also hit the kid. And then also both your kids are clearly on your side and want nothing to do with mom. So I never said it, not the a-hole, but I don't think I really needed to. Am I the a-hole for letting you know I am divorcing you by sending you a thread on the website that you use to ignore me? This is actually one of the top upvoted Reddit stories for the entire year, so I'm excited to see where this goes. OP starts it off with, "Hi, Stefan, maybe you will finally listen. And if you're wondering if you can just speed home and stop me from doing this and leaving, it's too late. I'm sending you this after I've already loaded everything in the car and left. Don't worry, I spoke with our landlords and took my name off the lease. I've set up a direct deposit for the next month's rent. After that, you're on your own, buddy." I guess you're wondering why. I'm guessing you'll act like you're completely blindsided, right? Because you've done absolutely nothing wrong, and you're a great husband and father-to-be, aren't you? Well, buddy, let me break it down for you in a language you understand. I, 29 female, have been married to my husband, 35 male, for 5 years. We've been together for nearly 10. Okay, so bro kind of borderline groomed her out of high school. On paper, everything seemed fine, but in reality, our marriage has been anything but. I've reached my breaking point, and I need to know if I'm the one in the wrong here. From the beginning, my mother-in-law has been a nightmare. She made everything about her from day one. At our wedding, she wore white, claiming it was a family tradition. In parentheses, it wasn't. She constantly criticizes me, from my cooking to my appearance. I'll never forget the time she called me fat at a family gathering, right in front of everyone. And what did my husband do? Nothing. Not a single word to defend me. It didn't stop there. She has, accidentally, destroyed my belongings, including my grandmother's necklace, which she threw out because it looked like cheap costume jewelry. She's gone out of her way to make me feel small and unwelcome in my own home, but every time I tried to talk to my husband about it, he'd brush it off, saying I was overreacting or being too emotional. And then there's my husband. He's always on Reddit, constantly giving strangers relationship advice, which is laughable considering how he treats me. He spends more time rating women's boobs on Reddit than talking to me. Literally. And just so you know, the last pair he rated wasn't a 4 out of 10. They were a 10 out of 10. Yeah, he's got plenty of time to do that, but can't be bothered to remember anything about my life. He'll forget about my birthday, our anniversary, even simple things like what I'm working on or what's important to me, but he has a perfect memory for his work schedule and things that matter to him. When we fight, he becomes incredibly hostile and always throws in a sarcastic buddy at the end of his sentences, like I'm some acquaintance he can barely tolerate. And he never cleans. The house, the dishes, laundry, you name it, it's all on me. It's like he thinks being an adult is optional as long as he's got his job and his Reddit account. The final straw came a few weeks ago. I'm 5 months pregnant with our first child, a daughter. Oh no, bro. I feel bad that there's a child in this absolutely chaotic mix, bro. I mean, how do you even let it go that far? That's always been my question, is how do you have this awful of a husband and you're like, oh, you know what we should do? Pop a baby out. I don't know, maybe it was a complete accident, but if he's a bad husband like that, you gotta wrap it, girl. You gotta jump on the pill or something. My mother-in-law started making comments about how she'll have to whip the girl into shape and how she'll raise her to be tough because I'm too soft. When I told my husband that I didn't want his mother to have too much influence on our daughter, especially with the way she treats me, he just laughed it off, saying his mother means well and that I was overthinking it. But the moment that truly broke me was when we were talking about future childcare and my husband suggested that his mother should watch our daughter while we work. I told him I wasn't comfortable with that, especially considering how his mother treats me, and he snapped. He called me paranoid and that I should get over it because his mother was going to be a big part of our daughter's life, whether I liked it or not. This is the same woman who believes corporal punishment is okay. I've seen her hit my husband's nephew for the smallest things, and no one does anything about it. It's like they're all living in some kind of cult, and I'm finally waking up to the reality of what's going on. If he wouldn't stand up for me, how could I expect him to stand up for our child? I started to fear for what kind of environment our daughter would grow up in, a place where she might be belittled or bullied by her own grandmother, with a father who wouldn't do anything to stop it. Oh, and did I mention that he missed our first ultrasound? His mother needed him to help her with something urgent. It turned out to be fixing her Wi-Fi. Her Wi-Fi. He chose that over seeing our daughter for the first time. That told me everything I needed to know about where I stand in his life. So I packed up and left. I'm done living like this. Oh, in case you're wondering, I've already contacted a lawyer. You can't scare me into complying anymore because I have all those texts. You know exactly which ones I'm talking about. Damn. The subtweeting in this is fucking crazy. She's dangling it above this man's head in a public forum. He deserves it, but that is some crazy work. So, Stefan, I wish you all the best in your future marriage with your mother and the women of Reddit whose boobs you don't even deserve. Shit, man. I mean, not the a-hole. Very, very obviously. I will say, chat, this isn't a surprise. If you were with this man for 10 years, you saw how he interacted with his mother. You saw how his mother acted around other kids. I'm not blaming you or anything. I'm just saying be better. And maybe a lesson to anybody listening to this, all right? When you marry someone, you're marrying their entire family. If you plan on having kids, you're marrying the way that they believe is the right way to raise kids. You need to cover all your bases before you put a ring on it. Even further, before you get impregnated. Personal philosophy, that's just my opinion, but this could have all been avoided if you sat down and you're like, I don't like how his mother raises kids. He wants his mother to be involved all the time, and if that's immovable, maybe I shouldn't marry him. Update-ish. Some people on Reddit have been pretending to know me and spread false claims. They've said I'm a deadbeat who doesn't work and that Stefan has 2 jobs to support me. They even fabricated a story about a neighbor who supposedly is a good friend of ours, saying I've been sleeping around and moving in with the guys I supposedly had affairs with. None of this is true. We don't live in South Carolina or the UK, and we're not friends with any of our neighbors. I have never cheated on Stefan, and I work and I make slightly more than him. Just $1 an hour difference. I suspect these claims might be from trolls or Stefan's friends trying to make me regret posting about this. The devil works hard, but Reddit works harder. You know, like, who's sitting there reading a random Am I the A-hole story, and I'm like, I'm gonna ruin this girl's credibility. I know she's pretty much completely anonymous, but fuck her, bro. This man should be able to rate boobs in peace. I am safe and staying with family, which is all I'm going to say for now. I'm working with my lawyer to ensure our safety, and that's all I can disclose at this time. For women who find themselves in my situation and are dealing with a lease, consult with a pro bono lawyer who specializes in rental rights. That's what I did. They can give you advice specific to your country or region. In my case, I was able to move out because Stefan and I had both signed a lease contract and had completed the minimum rental period. After my free consultation, I worked with my landlords, who are a lovely older couple, to arrange my departure. So don't be scared, or I mean, you can be scared, but there are things you can do to protect yourself. Also, make sure to run a credit check on yourself. I did, and it's another issue I'm addressing. As for recent developments, there hasn't been much new. Stefan is clearly desperate. He and my mother-in-law have both had meltdowns and launched separate smear campaigns. My mother-in-law has spread false claims, including that I'm an unfit mother and that I've been abandoning my responsibilities. I don't plan to answer these claims publicly. I'm collecting all evidence I have, especially since she has nothing to back her accusations, but I have everything to back up mine. So no, Stefan, this is not going to be a he said, she said situation. He deleted his Reddit account, claiming it was because one person found him, but then he told me a bunch of people sent him death threats, which seems impossible and contradictory. He did send his friends to my posts, and I think they sent me some unsavory DMs and comments, allegedly. When I tried to talk to Stefan, he always made me feel like I was going crazy. Whenever I raised concerns or expressed feelings, he would dismiss them, belittle my emotions, and make me second guess myself. For instance, I'd come home to find that he had invited people over without informing me in advance. When I brought it up, he'd insist that he had mentioned it earlier, even though I knew he hadn't. Another time, I planned a special meal and asked him for a specific dish, but he claimed I had requested something completely different. When I reminded him of what I had actually asked for, he'd argue that I must have forgotten my own request. Stefan would also insist that he had completed tasks that I had actually done myself. For example, he would claim he had handled a household chore when I was the one who actually took care of it. When I pointed this out, he dismissed my recollection and insists that he had done it. This is crazy work, bro. I feel bad for OP, and like, obviously she didn't do anything wrong, but like, how do you not look at this and you're like, maybe I shouldn't have a kid with this person? Even in conversations about our relationship, Stefan would frequently deny things he had said or done. If I brought up issues I had with his mom's behavior, he'd claim, "You never mentioned that before. You're just being overdramatic." This made me question whether I had ever truly discussed these problems or if I was indeed overreacting. At one point, I was so convinced that I had early onset dementia or schizophrenia that I started to question my own sanity. I felt lost and confused, struggling to distinguish between reality and his own version of events. I began to document our interactions just to keep track of what was actually happening, but Stefan would always find a way to twist things, saying, "You must be misremembering," even though I had clear evidence to the contrary. Feeling so powerless, I realized that sharing my story online was the only way to present my truth in a manner he couldn't manipulate. I wanted to ensure that there was a clear and unchangeable record of what had happened. Posting about my experiences was a crucial step in reclaiming my voice and finding support from others who might understand my situation. It was a way to take control of my narrative after feeling so lost and doubting myself for so long. Am I the a-hole for refusing to cook after my boyfriend tried to critique my cooking with a literal PowerPoint presentation? So this happened a few days ago, and I'm still trying to process it. For context, I, 28 female, have been with my boyfriend, 30 male, for about 2 years. We live together, and I've always done most of the cooking because I genuinely enjoy it. And he claims he can't even boil water without setting off the smoke alarm. The other night, I made one of our favorite meals, and while we were eating, he got a weird smirk on his face. He then says, "You know, I've been taking notes." I laughed, thinking he was joking, but then he said, "No, really, I made a presentation." I still thought it was a joke until he got up, connected his laptop to the TV, and opened a PowerPoint titled, "Improving Our Home Dining Experience." I was in disbelief as he went slide by slide, critiquing my dishes. Slide 1, too much garlic. Slide 2, pasta consistency. Slide 3, more salt, less sass. At what point was he putting together this PowerPoint and was like, ah, yes, this will be received positively? Why do men work so hard to be so goddamn stupid? Don't get me wrong, if he's not enjoying the cooking, he should say something, but also, man, beggars cannot be choosers here. If this woman is cooking your every meal, you shut the fuck up and eat what she puts in front of you, unless it's just god awful. The kicker was slide 8, which was just a photo of Gordon Ramsay face palming with the caption, "What he'd think." I was stunned. I told him if he had such detailed opinions, he could cook himself. He tried to backtrack, saying it was all in good fun and that he was just trying to help, but I wasn't laughing. I haven't cooked since, and now he's been living off cereal and takeout. He's sulking, saying I'm overreacting and ruining the joke. I love how every man does some like heinous ass shit and then is like, oh, you're just overreacting about it. I mean, not the a-hole, bro. Like, he could have just gone up to her and been like, hey, I was eating this and it was really good. Don't get me wrong. But I feel like maybe it would have been more enjoyable if you didn't put as much garlic in there. Would you mind doing that next time we have this dish? That's it, bro. That's all you can possibly justify saying, and it better be in the nicest tone, in the most beta bitch version that you can think of. That's how you should deliver this, because this woman is cooking your every meal. You have the dream, dog, and you just shit on it. And not only shit on it, but disrespected the fuck out of your girlfriend. We actually got 2 updates. Update number 1, after reading your comments and taking some serious time to process what happened, I decided that our relationship needed a serious talk. I sat him down to discuss how his presentation came across as not just unfunny, but pretty disrespectful. You know, typical mature relationship stuff. Well, what does he do? He smirks and goes, oh, I was prepared for this. He actually grabs his laptop, connects it to the TV again, and presents me with another PowerPoint titled, How to Take a Joke, a Comprehensive Guide. How brain dead do you have to be, dog? Like, oh, gee, the square hole didn't fit in the round peg. Maybe I should try it again. Like, what are we doing, man? Yes, folks, he made a whole slideshow explaining why I needed to learn to chill out and appreciate humor. Slide 1 featured a meme of a clown putting on makeup with my name plastered all over it. Slide 2, a bullet point list titled, Why Your Overreaction is Hilarious. Slide 3 was titled, How I'm Clearly the Comedian in This Relationship. Girl, the fact that you looked at it, like the second he pulled up that PowerPoint slide, I would have been like, pack your shit and get out. Gender Ghost Slide 4, you're single. Yeah, you gotta make a PowerPoint slide to break up with this man. At this point, I was too stunned to speak, but then he pulled out Slide 6, Things You Can Do While Not Cooking Because You're Mad. The audacity, right? This was as if he really thought he'd win me over with this next level presentation. Spoiler alert, he did not. So I did what any rational PowerPoint loving person would do. I made my own. I stayed up all night crafting a presentation called Why It's Time to Move On, a farewell guide. It had everything. Flowcharts mapping his incompetence in the kitchen, pie charts illustrating my happiness before and after the great presentation debacle, and my personal favorite, Slide 9, a gif of Gordon Ramsay yelling, get out. There we fucking go. That's the type shit we love to see, chat. This morning, I sat him down and went through my PowerPoint with the same energy he had given me. His reaction was priceless. He started with that same smirk, but lost it somewhere around Slide 4. Top 10 reasons you're moving out today. That's crazy. By the time I got to the resources for finding your own apartment slide, he was packing a bag. Now, before anyone worries, yes, he did actually leave. And no, I didn't even have to threaten him with Slide 12, which was just a photo of me blocking the Wi-Fi router. So yeah, we broke up and I'm single, happy, and cooking meals for myself without any critique, except my cat's judgmental stare. And to those who said I should make a breakup PowerPoint, just know your wish has been fulfilled. I still can't believe how all this went down over the course of one single weekend, but I now feel pretty good about myself. P.S. Oh, and fun fact, some of you were right, he actually is a business consultant. So making PowerPoint presentations is quite literally his day job. I guess he took bringing work home to a whole new unwelcome level. That's a slap in the face right there that he well deserved. Update 2, and this one's like a workplace update. Turns out the story took an unexpected dive into corporate drama. My ex works at a big consulting firm and they found out about the PowerPoint breakup. Between all the shares and the news articles, thanks New York Post and Board Panda, the story somehow made its way into his office. And let's just say it's been been causing some serious disruption over there. The news came to me from a mutual friend who's actually a colleague of his. This friend couldn't resist sharing the story with a few other coworkers, and before long, the whole office knew that he was the boyfriend behind the Reddit famous PowerPoint critiquing his girlfriend's cooking. People pieced it together pretty quickly. Honestly, how many PowerPoint-loving culinary critics can a single firm employ? And now it's become this unofficial inside joke that's taken over his team. Apparently, the real kicker happened yesterday. My ex had to present in a team meeting, and from what I've heard, it didn't exactly go smoothly. As soon as he pulled up his first slide, someone in the back muttered, "Hope this presentation is tastier than the last one," which set off a chain reaction of stifled laughs. A few people tried to keep it together, but by the time he was halfway through, someone else chimed in with, "Don't forget the salt." And at that point, half the room was doing their best to muffle the laughter. I've been told he somehow managed to finish the presentation, but I can't imagine it was easy with his entire team dropping subtle and not so subtle hints every few minutes. And now it's apparently become a running joke in the office. Anytime someone has to give feedback or present, someone will throw in, "Add a little more garlic," or "Is this feedback PowerPoint approved?" He's basically the office meme now, unofficially dubbed the PowerPoint gourmet. I mean, as he should be, bro. The breakup wasn't enough. Bro needs to be clowned on for that one. And in what might be the best prank yet, someone went into the company's internal wiki page, the one for onboarding new hires, and added a little unofficial policy at the bottom. It now reads, "Company culture tip. PowerPoints are a powerful tool for workplace communication, but please keep presentations about personal matters like cooking critiques out of the home environment." I'm told that every new hire sees it, and it's been getting some serious laughs from anyone who spots it. My ex was apparently mortified when he found out, but he couldn't exactly complain because, hey, it's just helpful advice for the team, right? Now it's a full-on company legend, with people half joking that they'll add it to the official onboarding materials. Meanwhile, my friends have been sending me updates nonstop, and I can't help but laugh at the absurdity of it all. One friend texted, "You've created an office legend," while another said, "Please tell me he's not planning a rebuttal PowerPoint. Let's hope for everyone's sake that he isn't." Am I the a-hole for telling my fiance my stepdaughter isn't mine? Sort it yourself. I'm a 27-year-old man and my fiance is 30. We've been together for nearly 4 years. I have a 6-year-old son and she has an 11-year-old daughter from previous relationships. Up until now, we've never had any issues regarding the children. Yesterday, her daughter was set to go on a camping trip for a friend's birthday where they'd be doing activities like kayaking. My fiance dressed her in a dress, and I mentioned to her that it doesn't seem like the right choice for the occasion. She seemed offended and said her daughter could wear whatever she liked and that it wasn't a man's place to judge. I tried to clarify what I meant, but she cut me off, saying, "She's my daughter, not yours." Okay, all right, so she kind of has opened the floodgates here. I took my son to a pre-planned match when my fiance rang me. It turns out the birthday girl's mom had told her daughter she couldn't go in a dress and needed to wear a tracksuit or something similar, so they didn't let her on the bus. My fiance then asked if I could leave the match early to drive her daughter to the activity center. I replied, "Why should I? She's not my daughter and I'm here with my son." Neither of us are talking now. I do pity for my stepdaughter and I wasn't being spiteful. My son was looking forward to it and it would be about 2 to 4 hours of travel. Let me read this edit really quick because what he said is, "From what I get, I was a bit of an a-hole. She was a bigger a-hole, so I'm going to try and talk it out and see what we both want." Here's the thing, bro. Like, yes, maybe you could find some a-hole in there, but bro was just sticking to her guns. The only way I think he would be the a-hole here is if he pulled out the "she's your daughter" without her having pulled it out. That's the part here that I'm like, listen, bro, like she's the one who established it. If she wants to say those words, bro, use those words against her. Don't get me wrong. Is it sad for the stepdaughter? Absolutely. I don't think that's how, when you decide to marry someone, that also includes taking up parental responsibilities for their existing children, whether they're yours or not. And almost going in with the fact of like, as much as maybe this isn't my daughter, I have to act like this is my daughter in certain situations. I just think it's more important that this is like a learning lesson for the mother. If anything, you need to make it very clear to her that like, hey, I want that daughter to be my daughter as well, but you can't go about it like that. And my opinions have to be valid as well, especially in this case where he was right. We do have a tiny little update to that, which is titled, "Telling my fiance her daughter is not mine. People wanted an update and I wanted to rant." I had a conversation with my fiance and she asked why I would say something hurtful. I replied I was just repeating what she had said to me earlier. Then she asked if I loved her daughter, and I said I did. She asked if it was as much as I loved my son, and I responded almost as much. She got cranky. I asked her if she loved my son. She said no. I asked if she loved me, and her answer was sort of. Hold on. How the fuck do you get cranky when they said almost as much and then your answer was no? I don't know. Maybe y'all are going to shoot me after I say this, but I think this is an appropriate response. If I am your blood child, if I came from the sack, bro, I want to be loved more than a child that wasn't from that sack. Hey, you marry in, you bring in a step kid, treat that kid like your kid, but push comes to shove, bro, I better be the priority. She started crying, woke up her daughter, and told her they had to leave, though I hadn't told them to go. I said we could talk about it tomorrow, but she insisted, saying he doesn't want us anymore. I told her that I never said that. Her daughter began crying and didn't want to leave, but her mother said, don't let me leave on my own. He doesn't want you. I reassured them both they were welcome to stay. My fiance decided to leave without her daughter, and now she's not answering. When I spoke to my daughter's father, he just laughed and said she couldn't even hold off on the crazy until after the wedding. Oh no. I mean, that is kind of crazy, chat. I'm not a huge fan of believing the ex because usually they have every reason to say bad things, but also her behavior is very suspect here. Her saying that she doesn't love the son and she only sort of loves OP, having this like gaslight meltdown, and then leaving without her daughter. Like, all of those things are wrong, but in their own way. Just tell your 11-year-old daughter, we are leaving. You're coming with me. You have to. I am your mother. Not saying that you can't trust them with the daughter, but like, if you're gonna go and you're making a whole big thing about it, like, take your daughter and go. Am I the a-hole for refusing to take care of my niece after she called me a slur? Before we get into the last story, if you've gotten this far in the video, I'm guessing you're enjoying it, and if you want to enjoy all my future uploads, make sure to hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss any videos in the future. Also, if you'd like to be here live for those Reddit reads, go and check out my Twitch. Link should be in the description. I usually go live every Thursday and Sunday reading Reddit stories from Am I the A-hole and Best of Redditor updates. Join us for those lives and even get a chance to be featured in videos just like this one. I, 29 male, and my wife, 30 female, have 2 kids, 5 male and 3 male. My wife works a full-time office job, while I work from home with extremely flexible hours. Basically, as long as I meet my deadlines, no one really cares how many hours it took or what time of day I work, outside of some Zoom meetings. My sister, 26 female, let's call her Barb, and her husband, 30 male, let's call him Nick, live nearby and work full-time jobs. They have a daughter, 5 female, let's call her Tracy. Because of my comfortable work schedule, when our kids started going to daycare, we basically decided that I'll be dropping off and picking up my niece from daycare alongside my own kids. I didn't really mind, and I thought it was great for my kids to spend time with their cousin. I get along with Tracy as well, and always thought I was her cool uncle. She's a sweet kid and usually well-behaved. So anyway, most days I bring her and my kids back to our house. I make them snacks or dinner, and in the afternoon/evening, my sister comes to pick them up. A few days ago, the 5-year-old kids were watching Bluey on the TV as I was preparing snacks with my 3-year-old, and I suddenly heard yelling. I rush over to see what's up, and my son was yelling at her that, my dad's not a girl, while my niece yells back, he is. He's a F-slur. That's like a girl. The word is different in my language, but the meaning holds, as is the distinction between using it versus simply addressing a gay person. I'm kind of in shock at first, but I turned off the TV and I sat her down and began explaining that this is a very bad word and we shouldn't be calling people that, and that regardless, I'm not a girl. And because this is a bad word, she should apologize to me because we don't act mean to each other in this family. And if I hear this again, I'm going to talk to her parents and she's going to get in trouble. She said she won't get in trouble because that's what her dad called me, and he's not in trouble. I was stunned. I told her that regardless of what her dad said, it's a very bad word and she's not to use it with me or in my presence, and that she should apologize regardless because it hurt my feelings, which she did because she's a really good kid. We talked some more and I prodded her about other things her parents said, and from what I gather, getting info out of a 5-year-old being obviously a difficult and unreliable process, Nick, my brother-in-law, told my sister in Tracy's presence that men shouldn't be sitting at home all day and doing childcare, that cooking is a woman's duty, as is cleaning and really most of the things I do around my house, and that I'm a girl. I interpret this as not really a man because I do housework and my wife earns more money than me. I explained to her the best I could that men and women could work from an office or from home, and that my wife or Barb working long hours from the office doesn't make them men, and vice versa. and I didn't dwell on it with her since it's not really her fault. Okay, so we got a misogynistic husband, an insecure little baby boy, a man with a little peen who unfortunately had the opportunity to procreate. I didn't immediately bring it up with my sister because I figured it would be a difficult conversation and I didn't want to have it in front of the kids, and I wanted to talk about it with my wife first as well. I did talk to my wife that evening, and she seemed really upset as well. I told her that I think I should demand an apology from Nick and my sister, and she agreed. I called my sister and told her what happened, and she said that it's just a word, and I'm blowing it out of proportion, and obviously Nick doesn't dislike me. I said I don't care whether he does or doesn't dislike me, he is talking shit about me, behind my back, to my niece and to her, and she is apparently very chill about this, rather than standing up for me. She said that was how Nick was, and I should stop being a drama queen. I told her to fuck off, and if that was how she felt, she could pick up her own child from daycare, and I hung up. I know it was really short notice and rude, but I really felt like I was being disrespected by people I did so much for over the years and were my family. My wife said she'd understood, and that I shouldn't back down until I at least get a proper apology. Nah, bro, that's the right move. Like, at this point, it's a respect thing. If you just accept this kind of behavior, they're gonna keep thinking that this behavior is okay because you're not freaking out about it, because you're not sticking your ground. So props to OP, bro. I mean, unfortunate for that little girl. Like, a little part of me wants to be like, hey, maybe you being around her will influence her to not follow in her dad's footsteps. But also, that's not your responsibility, bro. The next 2 days were a weekend and there was no daycare. I assumed there would be calls or texts from Barb, but there was nothing. In fact, the suspicious lack of messages or calls made me think she didn't take my word seriously, and this actually got me even more angry. The calls did come when it was time to pick up Tracy for daycare, and I, obviously, didn't come. I dropped my own kids off and didn't even answer for a while. I know it was petty, but I was stewing for 2 days and figured letting Barb stew for a few hours seemed really appropriate and felt really good. Around noon, when she called again, I did pick up. I was going to smugly tell her I was ready for my apology and we would put it behind us, but I didn't get to it. Instead, she went off on me about how I was irresponsible and I flaked, and she was so late for work because of me, to which I just said, I told you I wasn't going to pick her up. You had 2 days to make arrangements. And she kept yelling at me, so I hung up again. She kept calling and sending me texts about picking Tracy up from daycare, to which I said I will not be, then stopped replying. When I came to pick my kids up, Tracy was expecting me to take her as well, and I didn't, which was very rough on me and her both. Like, I know it's not her fault, and she's 5, and she suddenly doesn't get to go over to our place and play and have snacks. I didn't want to just let this thing go. I felt like I deserved an apology, and still do, so I explained that me and her mom were fighting, but I'll pick her up again when we work it out. She obviously didn't take it well, because she's 5, but I apologized, took my kids, and left. That's such a sad situation to be put in, but I do think OP's doing the right thing. That kid isn't suffering from the actions of OP. That kid is suffering from the actions of her parents. Well, a bit later, I got a call from my mom. Barb roped her into picking up Tracy, but my mom is disabled, so she was having a really hard time with Tracy and asked me why I was being mean to Barb. I told her everything, expecting her to take my side, but instead she also pulled a, you know how Nick is, to which I replied, the more I realize how Nick is, the less I like it. And if he thinks all this shit in general, and about me specifically, I sure as fuck ain't going to be doing free labor for him. She said I was blowing this all out of proportion, and I told her I wasn't the one doing it because all I asked for was a fucking apology. And everyone else seemed to prefer all of this shit to just giving it to me, to which she said I should just be the bigger man and not let it get to me. To which I said I was done and to have fun with Tracy. Damn, what a shitty mom, bro. Why stand up for the shitty man your daughter married instead of your own son? You should be more mad at your daughter inconveniencing your life and making it harder than your son. That evening, I got a call from Nick himself, which I was hesitant about, but chose to answer on the off chance that I was actually about to get that apology. Nope. Apparently, my behavior is causing Barb great distress, and we're family. And how can I do this to my own sister? I told him that since we're family, how can he talk shit about me to his kid, which I take care of daily? And he said he was only joking and that it was all in good fun. I told him it was neither good nor fun for me, and I want my apology. He blew up on me, telling me I was a F-slur and couldn't take a joke, and called me a hysterical little girl. I told him to fuck off and that I was done with him and hung up. This led to a bunch of calls from Barb and my mom, which I didn't answer. Oh yeah, bro, let's just like keep calling him the thing that you want an apology for. That'll fix it. I mean, that just goes to show the actual brain dead person that he is. Barb texted me that it wasn't fair for Tracy to pay the price for me being petty. And I told her that it wasn't fair for Tracy to pay the price of her parents being ungrateful pieces of shit. To which she just yelled at me a bunch about how she was going to lose her job and I was being cruel to her and to mom. I told her I was done, and unless the next message was an apology, I will be blocking her number, and it wasn't, so now I blocked her. Past few days, my mom's been picking up Tracy, and it's been really rough seeing her in daycare and explaining that grandma's going to pick her up, which she hates, and tells me she isn't having fun with grandma and wants to come over to our place, and it's breaking my heart. But at the same time, I never got a single apology from anyone but the 5-year-old. And I feel like letting this go would just be telling my family it's okay to ignore my boundaries. But at the same time, I do love my niece, and I don't want to traumatize her or have her resent me. She is a good kid, and none of it is her fault. So am I the a-hole? What do I do? I've spoken my piece, bro. I think he's making the right move here. That poor kid is the victim in this situation, but it's not the victim of OP's actions, the victim of the parents' actions. Let me read this edit before we get into the actual update. The angle of Nick actually wanting Barb to quit her job is not one I considered, but now I think it might actually have some merit, and it makes me very worried for her. At the same time, I can't really do much until she at least acknowledges that that's just how Nick is, so stop overreacting isn't going to fly with me. I also assume it's only a matter of time until my mom is no longer an option. She's already having a hard time, so I hope I get a chance to talk to her about it. Ideally because she sees my point of view, but I'll settle for her because she's desperate. I don't know what sort of childcare they'll be able to afford. They took out a large mortgage on a house they can barely afford. I will also make certain to stress upon Tracy that I love her and none of this is her fault. All right, chat, the long-awaited update. Couple clarifications here. My dad died from a heart attack 2 years ago, which came as no surprise because he smoked a lot and lived a pretty unhealthy life. So we weren't really surprised. It wasn't his first either. He was a great grandpa and a great dad before that and right up to the end, but his death left my mom alone and she doesn't work. My mom has MS, which is basically mostly steady, but slowly gets worse over time and flares up occasionally, and is made worse by stress, which my mom goes through now. A flare-up often means the level she gets back to isn't quite what it was before, so we mostly try to keep her stress-free. My dad had life insurance, so her house is paid for and she had a little money, but there's also a caretaker coming over 3 times a week to clean, cook, do shopping, etc., which she can't afford, so me and my wife pay for. As I mentioned in a comment on the original post, me and my wife are doing probably better off financially than Barb and brother-in-law. They have a fancy house and fancy cars, but they have a mortgage and loans. So the great response I got made me think about this shit again, and I thought how I could stand my ground without giving up on Tracy altogether, and figured there was no perfect solution and I had to settle on something. I took the day off work because I just needed to process and deal with this shit. One comment on the original post really got to me about how someone would feel in Tracy's place, and I just can't do it to her now. I know this isn't the update some of you wanted, but I just can't. I love her like she was one of my own, and my kids do as well, and it's not her fault. I unblocked my sister because obviously if I'm going to be interacting with her child, she needs to be able to reach me. I talked to my mom during the day, and she was, again, distraught about having to pick Tracy up, which is pretty hard on her. I told her I was willing to do it, but I'm coming over and she's going to have to hear me out, to which she agreed. I talked to her for a long time, avoiding snark and lashing out this time, and just explained that basically how serious Nick was, or how he is, doesn't matter. I used that rocking the boat analogy someone linked to me in the comments, and further stressed my point by saying it shouldn't matter if I was justified or not in getting upset. I am her child, and if something upset me, it at least warrants giving me the benefit of the doubt before siding against me, and eventually it seemed to come through. She apologized and we hugged it out, and I think she got it. She's not a very confrontational person and generally really tries to keep the peace, and this time she went about it wrong. I'm not saying I'm not mad, but she's my mom and she apologized. I explained to her that she shouldn't be covering for me because that means I have no leg to stand on when confronting Nick and Barb, and she was receptive to it. I texted my sister that we needed to talk and I'll drop Tracy off at their place tonight, to which I got a stoic thumbs up. I picked Tracy up from daycare today and she was overjoyed. She was actually a little possessive of me, staying by my side all afternoon instead of running off to play, which was cute, but also made me feel like shit a little, because that's the impact of me not picking her up. I explained to the best of my ability that she's not in trouble and I'm not angry with her, but I am angry with her parents and we need to work that out. But I'll do my best to not stop picking her up anymore, which she was really happy about. I dropped her off in the evening, and once she was in bed, I sat down to talk with Barb and Nick. I told them flat out that mom wasn't going to be covering for them anymore, and if they didn't let me finish what I had to say, I would get up and leave and they can find new arrangements for Tracy. Didn't mean it, but they don't need to know that. They weren't happy, but they were willing to listen, so that's progress, or at least the threat working. I explained that this was the situation now. I don't need them to mean their apology, but I sure as fuck was going to need one. This was principle now. I have spent years taking care of their child, and if they wanted to be a-holes, I wasn't going to do it for free. So this was how it goes now. 1. I am no longer going to be dropping her off in the morning until further notice. There was no excuse for the way Nick acted, and it needed to have some lasting impact. 2. I was no longer going to be paying for family outings and family vacations. It was a man's job to support his family, so good luck with that. The exception is Tracy, who is always welcome. 3. If I hear any more BS being talked about me behind my back, I was going to start charging them for my services. My plan was to dangle the thing they want, childcare, restoring it, but at the same time giving some repercussions and threat of things getting hard for them again. I mean, good on OP. I think this is the right move in terms of, I don't know if keeping the peace is the right way to put it, but keeping the peace on their terms. I will say it's very sad that he basically has to act like they are children and implement a punishment that you should be implementing for children for these adults, for these grown ass humans with a whole ass child. Like, what? I also laid it on pretty thick about how I am a man, so I obviously have my pride and can't have that be disrespected. Even by my own family, who I obviously love. Don't really consider Nick family, but figured he wouldn't figure that out. Nick was not happy about this, and my sister actually had to take him outside to talk it out without me. But eventually they did agree to it, and I got my, admittedly half-hearted, apology. I could probably press it further, but I didn't want to risk having to either back down or hurt Tracy again, so I took this. There were no tears and no warm hugs, but I get to walk away with what I wanted, giving them some payback without having to give up my time with Tracy. I still plan to talk to my sister alone about her relationship with Nick and about how she sees me, but I figure I should let things calm down a bit before I do. I know this isn't the resolution some, maybe most of you wanted, but at the end of the day, I need to find a solution I can live with, and for me, this is it. Chat, we gotta keep up to like if he updates this again, because I'm dubious about the long-term effects of this half-hearted apology. Not that OP was blackmailing them, but he kind of was a little bit, like dangling the thing that they basically need to keep their heads above water. There is a little bit of a power dynamic there. And because of that, like, I just think this could create some animosity that's going to manifest in the future. I will say, for the sake of keeping the peace and for not only what's probably best for Tracy, but also what's probably best for that mom, maybe this was the right move. I don't know. I just don't think they really learned. I think there's going to be another update to the story.